Morning, everybody. Thanks for having us. Thanks to Bazinga for putting on such a great event. I had a chance to participate in a panel yesterday, and that was great too. I had a good crowd, so MediPharm Labs, really happy to be here. Sorry, just get this clicker going. So my name's Keith Strawn. I'm the president and co-founder of MediPharm Labs. I really got into cannabis, kind of fell into cannabis, just like kind of everyone else in the industry. No one thought they would be in this industry probably 6 years ago. So back in 2013, in Canada, they launched this commercial medical program to deal with some legislation coming out of the Supreme Court. My job then, I was a freelance consultant. I worked in government supply chain. A lot of work that I did was writing RFPs for companies. I got into a lot of grant writing and shred credits, like credits from the government. So I had a real estate client come to me and say, oh, I have this tenant. He's applying for a medical marijuana license. Can you help him? And I thought, sure. I just said, like, this should be some good billable hours. So I fumbled my way through that application. I ended up doing one more. This is still 2013, and kind of left it at that. And I was a little bit confused about the industry and where it was going. It was still a small medical program. Fast forward about a year, and I'm sitting on a bar stool, and in walks in our co-founder, Pat McCutcheon, who I know from when I used to work for in the hospital industry, in healthcare. He was working at Janssen, sales and marketing, running their hospital division for the whole country. And he tells me, oh, I'm really excited. I'm going to get into the medical marijuana program. And I said, oh, okay. Well, if you want an application, I'll give you mine. Because I just wrote 2 of them, and he goes, well, do you want to be involved? I said, nah, it doesn't make any sense. People are just growing these like cannabis plants in warehouses. Like, look at the price of electricity. It's never going to work. Like, at that time, there wasn't even greenhouses. So he said, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stick just to extraction. So from there, it really brought an opportunity moving forward. MediPharm Labs became the first license in Canada solely for concentrate production. So we're license number 95. Anyone before us had some sort of cultivation aspect to their license. So we were the first to do that. And because we were first, that gave us the ability to be a front runner in what we were doing. We put in our application 2016, 2018, we received that license under the old Cannabis Act, which is now transferred to the new Cannabis Act with many changes in legislation since. And then in 2018 is when we went public. So it's been just about a year since we went public. This kind of shows a little bit of our capital structure. We just did a raise in June led by Scotiabank. So through that raise and through the involvement of dealing with different banks and different iBanks, we do have quite a lot of coverage as well. So MediPharm Labs is a really differentiated company in the cannabis space in Canada and globally. Really, what we are is we're a leader in extraction. We're able to do that because we were first mover advantage, bringing in all the scientific team, bringing in all the professionals. We really went into extraction for the high growth, high margin. So we saw it as kind of the place that we could add the most value based on our team and where we could take the most value out based on the industry. So we thought that was great. I mentioned the first mover advantage. And really what we did, and we made really the distinct decision, was to focus on scale. So whereas there's some other of our peers back in 2017, 18, we're really focused on some sort of new technology or some sort of trying to reinvent it. We took tried and true methodology that's used for extraction in places like the fragrance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and we just redeployed that into the cannabis industry. And what that allowed us to do is to really scale up, and that got us to kind of being able to attract those big contracts. Our first big contract with Canopy Growth, they were extracting for 2 years before we even got our license, but we were able to surpass them in kind of the amount of concentrate poured on a weekly basis because of that focus and because of doing that scale. So that gave us that revenue. And because of that revenue and because of the business to business, we have predictable cash flow. So on a month-to-month basis, we can do a lot of planning. There's a lot of up and down in the cannabis industry with regulations. In Canada in particular, the retail rollout in different jurisdictions has been quite difficult and quite different. So what we thought is, sticking to this business to business, especially in the beginning, gives us that predictable cash flow that we can do some planning and stick to the business fundamentals. And then with that, we kind of said, okay, we got the predictable cash flow. We've been raising money, so we're really looking eyes set on international markets. So we have a facility in Australia, in the state of Victoria, and we also are looking at different global opportunities, such as jurisdiction distributing into the EU, which I'll get to. So our business model as an extractor is really focused on wholesale. So a lot of times, extraction, especially in some more mature jurisdictions like California, Colorado, there's a lot of extraction-only companies that are using extraction as a service. So it's a service fee. It's more of a tolling contract where you take someone's biomass, you transform it into something else, and you send it back to them, and you charge them that fee. What we wanted to do, we started with some of those contracts, but for us, we really wanted to get into this wholesale business so we could get the private label. We see the future of cannabis being big CPG or big pharma or both coming into the space, and they'll be looking for API. So we'll be looking for active ingredients, and we're lining ourselves up to do that. In order to do that, we had to get our own supply. We buy from 20 different approved cultivators in Canada, and we make it into a multiple of products with our own inventory. So anything from that bulk active ingredient right down into, with new legislation, we just had our license transferred, so we're now able to make extracts. We can make edibles and topicals as well. It's not something that we really want to be into at this stage. We are going to stick laser focused on that concentrate and concentrate-like products. We're not experts in bakeries or canning lines, so that's not something that we want to really get into. So we've been busy. This is the list of key milestones, and I think every time I present, the slides get more and more crowded, so we'll have to cut it down. But as I said, we went public in 2018 and have had a great success in the capital markets. We're actually number 2 in publicly traded companies as far as year-over-year growth in market cap. So we're very proud of that. As we mentioned, that big deal that we did with Canopy Growth in November really kicked off our business, kicked off that predictable cash flow. Looking forward, kind of international-wise, we did a deal with Ozcan out of Australia, one of the bigger publicly traded companies in Australia. We already send them concentrate today, so we send them concentrate from Canada into Australia, and then they use that to make end products for clinical trials that they're doing. And then going forward, looking at staying in that clinical market and in the medical market where we find is the big global opportunity. We signed on with Mount Sinai out of New York City to help contribute CBD to a trial that they're doing there with Dr. Yasmin Hurd, one of the leaders in cannabis research, and we're really proud of that. Moving forward, kind of looking at the adult use market in Canada, we really needed some good CPG brands that we could kind of lift their brand and bring it to market. The big one that we did was Ace Valley. So Ace Valley is a spin-off of a beer company in Toronto called Ace Hill, really successful company. They launched Ace Valley and they started in the pre-rolls. So when they came to us and they said, we want to make a concentrate vapable, it just made sense. They actually had great success in the pre-rolls. They don't do any cultivation themselves. They don't own a license themselves, and they actually had the #1 pre-roll, #1 sales of pre-roll in Ontario. So we said, this is a no-brainer. This is the type of people that we want to partner with. And then moving forward, just in the international stage, you see the Adrex logo there. Adrex is a distribution company based in Germany. They already sell a CBD product in 20,000 different pharmacies in Germany, and we're going through the process now to get them a THC product that will be all medical. The great thing about Germany is it's a great, well-established market, great medical program, and 85% of the medical users in Germany actually get government coverage. So we're not seeing that price compression that you see in the retail world when the government is covering it. back to kind of the financial performance that lets us really supercharge this business, really focusing on revenue. I think that a lot of times cannabis companies get too caught up in trying to be everything for everyone, and it's a big cash burn, and they're just constantly raising money to keep afloat. And so we wanted to kind of keep to the fundamentals of business and make sure that we had that predictable cash flow. So even looking back in our December financials at 10 million, fast forward to the last financials that we just did at 31 million in revenue, and adjusted EBITDA positive all the way through, and even our net income was positive in the last quarter. So we're going to see that growth continue, and we're really proud of that. And I think that gives us, it really shows the industry that how strong we are and how great of a partner we are. So if you are a pharmaceutical company that's looking for a partner in cannabis, it just makes sense when you come and see MediPharm. You see that we have that defined supply chain. You see that we're an established business and we're not going to go anywhere. And remarkable, I mentioned we're number 95 licensed in Canada at $31 million in cannabis-related revenue. That puts us third in Canada for publicly traded companies for cannabis-related revenue, only behind Canopy and Aurora. So quite a big feat there. The way we do this is through a lot of strategic deals and a lot of white label agreements. You could see them up there. What we're really looking for in those agreements is long-term. A lot of times we're tasked with the question, well, we're seeing prices bottom out in flower. Are we going to see the prices bottom out in concentrate? We are going to see some price compression there, but that's why we signed up for those long-term contracts. So a lot of those long-term contracts, you're locked in at your 2018, 2019 pricing and taking that forward, going forward. So that's really the opportunity for us to lock in that predictable cash flow and let us take on those international projects. I won't spend too much time on this. I think you guys have been here listening to cannabis companies for a couple of days, so we can all kind of see where the market's going. And especially in Canada, as we see the introduction of things like beverages and edibles and vapables, it all starts with a concentrate. And right now, MediPharm is probably arguably making the most concentrate on a day-to-day basis in the whole industry. So it gives us an opportunity to really play well in that market that's just getting started. So with this footprint, as I mentioned, a big thing for us is international. So it kind of seemed like a waste. We put together the best pharmaceutical team, made a GMP-like facility that we're still getting certified in Barrie, Ontario, just north of Toronto. And so we said, how do we, get this expertise out to the world? In Europe, we're doing that through, the first deal that we're doing is through Adrex. We're looking at similar deals with distribution. In Australia, we really took the bull by the horns. We own 80% of MediPharm Australia. We have a full facility there that kind of mirrors our facility. Construction's done, equipment's coming in, and we're waiting for the Therapeutic Goods Association to come in, the government to come in later this year and give us our final check mark so we could start storing cannabis there and doing cannabis testing and then get to full concentrate production. I think when we look at extraction and kind of that barrier to entry and people saying the moat's kind of getting smaller and smaller. I think what we need to do beyond just scale is focus on technology. So what we have here is kind of that primary extraction box there of the primary extraction. That's kind of your more easier way, more defined way. You link up with a great manufacturer of equipment. They could kind of give you all the SOPs you need to get to that stage and get through that. A little bit of a less skilled workforce you can use to run some of that equipment as well. And then as you get into the distillation stage, that's what's really getting more and more popular in Canada as well, obviously in the more mature jurisdictions in the United States. So using that white pat distillation, we do a lot of distillation today. That gets you to like your products like your edibles, beverages, vapables. But really where the future is in your chromatography. How do we separate, isolate individual novel cannabinoids? So when we think about big pharma coming into the space, they're not going to be looking at full resin, because at full resin you need to have a predictable crop that's the exact same every single time, and that's not going to happen. So if you want to go into a clinical trial, you're going to want to have the same 99.9% cannabinoid. And then as you get into that trial, you're going to want to maybe look at some more novel cannabinoids like a CPG or THCV, which has some great therapeutic effects. So what we're doing is we're enhancing our platform now on the technology side to isolate and fractionate these minor novel cannabinoids. If you come to our facility today in Barrie, we got a lineup of 15 different test tubes that are all clear, and they're all just pure cannabinoids of all those different cannabinoid types, and we do that now using centrifugal partition chromatography, and I would butcher it if I tried to explain it to you, but basically we're separating, isolating those cannabinoids, and so we do that at a bench scale now, and we're looking forward to moving that up to bigger scale. So just upcoming catalysts. I think when people look at our company and they say, wow, MediPharm, you've come a long way. You're number 3 in revenue. You're number 2 in year-over-year growth in your market cap. Am I coming too late to the party? And we don't believe that. We think that we got a long ways to go with the upcoming opening of Australia and with our moving into the global markets. So I think that some catalysts that you could look at is we're probably right now one of the biggest buyers of dry cannabis in Canada. As the market dries up, as far as capital goes, it gives us the opportunity to keep buying at advantageous prices, but as well, it gives us that opportunity to own our own supply. So right now, our biggest cost in our cost of goods sold is that dry cannabis. So if a new entrant was to come in, that capital outlay to buy those 1,000 or 5,000 kilograms of dry cannabis, would be difficult as far as raising money goes. Increase in Canadian legalization. We're just seeing more and more stores come online. Our biggest province, Ontario, has kind of been fumbling through it to date, but as we get more and more stores, that gives more and more opportunity. The numbers just came out from Canada this week, 25% growth in retail sales from July to August. So with that massive month-over-month growth, that gives a good opportunity for someone like us. And then really looking at EU GMP. So the whole GMP process that allows you to export, it's a recognizable international designation, and we're going through that process now. It takes a long time. We're probably about 18 months into the process. We probably have another about 4 to 6 months to go. But a lot of that stuff, you can't speed it up. If we're looking at, providing stability data on resin, and they want stability data for a year, well, you had to make the resin 11 months ago to be able to provide something like that. So I think that's really important of kind of having that first mover advantage and the maturity of our company to get that GMP status, and then that will allow us to ship to places like Europe, and then as new markets come on, like South Korea and Thailand, and where we're seeing advancements in the medical market globally, it really gives us that opportunity. And then as far as global expansion goes, we'll be looking to have actually like a physical footprint in some of these places. So we have Australia, we have that project wrapping up as far as the build goes. I think we'd like to focus our attention now on building somewhere else. So do we build in South America where the inputs are the lowest cost and all over the world? Do we build in Europe where the patient base is the biggest? And basically right now we have a business development team that's flying around the world trying to look at these sites, look at the partners, and see what's the best place for us to go. So I think that's something that you can look forward to as far as MediPharm and its growth. So just have a minute left, and what I want to do is maybe I talked about kind of our professional team, and I could just touch on some of these people really quickly. Pat McCutcheon, our CEO and the other co-founder, he comes from a long line of pharmaceuticals, so we look at it, our whole company, not just from the production standpoint, but right down to culture and corporate governance, closer to pharmaceuticals, so kind of bringing that big corporate vibe to kind of a startup, which helped us scale up immensely. A year ago we had 20 employees. Now we're at 200 employees. So hiring 10 people a week, we really have to have those systems in place to make sure that we take care of them. And then if you look at kind of our science team here, it's top notch. Dr. Chris Telpus has been with us since the beginning. He's our director of quality, and basically he comes from Therapure. Therapure, they make biologic sterile blood products. So there's nowhere else in the world where they're making something cleaner. That's your top clean room if it's something that it's an injectable. So we try to bring that same quality into MediPharm when we're looking at the ongoing questions in the industry about quality, especially with questions around vaping and whatnot. I think that gives us that confidence to know that every single product that we release to market is at that top quality. So I thought it would be important to point that out there. And unfortunately, I am running out of time here, but I'm around for the next couple hours. So I know I've connected with some of you already before the presentation, but if I could connect with you after, that'd be awesome. Thanks for your time.